Hello and welcome everyone. This is Matt Maxwell over at Passageways. I thank you for wanting to spend some time with us today talking about our millennial workforce. This truly has been a wonderful series. We're going to get started in just a few minutes. We've got several people, join who indicated they're going to be a little bit late, so we're going to give them another minute or two to join. But we're really excited as this series specifically. This is one of our five, or actually this is number six in our series. Has had over 100 people attend every single session, so we're pretty excited. We do multiple days of this per month. So if you're attending this one, there's others in different days, but really excited that you were able to attend today. I see many great customers in the list, so appreciate the Passageways family coming out and representing. And those of you that aren't familiar with Passageways, I give you a little of who we are and why this topic specific is so important, especially to our financial institutions. That's really the key. So some of the other components that are readily available, as you know, because we've really focused on building the blocks, the foundation to this series for millennials. So as you can see, and I won't read through these, but to give you a highlight, we focused on who millennials are, what they look like. That's the key. We talked about onboarding and keys to setting them up for success, specifically within the first 30 days. And we've also got some pretty neat sessions where we went into retention of them and even succession planning in part four, preparing them for management and leadership positions. And we go into detail on why that's such a big topic, because we're on the cusp of a very big change for millennials. I'll chat about that a little bit today, perhaps. And then one of our fun, just keeping up with social topics, was our Pokemon Go and what that means for our business, and talking about the changes and why it was so successful. We know that it's been proven to be a big fad. There's many players who still continue to play, but the key was what brought this culture, this community, this group together without instructions, and how did they become so viral? We talked about that in detail. And then today to go through and talk about the salaries. So how this topic specifically came to be. So I was recently at the ICBA conference, Leadership Lead Forward Conference in Denver, and I was doing a session, early bird session, believe it or not, 7:30 a.m. there, and it turned out that we were expecting 10, 15, 20 people, and we ended up setting a ICBA record even for their national conference in attendance for an early session. It was thrown in last minute, but proved to be just a great topic where we went through some of the components I'm sharing today, as well as the previous sessions, but just talking about millennials in general. Now, why I say all that was, we had standing room only, and they were bringing in more chairs. But I got this question from the audience, and it hadn't occurred to me as a millennial. Yes, I fit the millennial, fit here. But as a millennial myself, we found this to be pretty intriguing in the sense that the question was, Matt, you haven't talked a thing about salaries and pay. When does that come in for millennials? Because you just, nothing you've said even indicates pay. And I paused and I stopped and I said, it really doesn't matter. And then I went out and did a little bit more research and looked around, and sure enough, the rest of the industry tends to feel the same way I do about it, having hired and worked with millennials my whole career. From early age of 13 in detasseling fields and cornfields, working with hundreds of 13 and 14-year-old who are now in their mid-20s, to now work the organization here at Passageways, helping with employee collaboration with our banks and our credit unions. And then also, I volunteer quite a bit at Purdue University, working with seniors and business plans. So really passionate for me. Okay, so that's why this topic came to be. So it's part of, really looking at our millennials. So to recap and set the stage for today, because we've all slept a couple times since the last webinar, if you're one of the repeat attenders, we found people coming every month, which I appreciate your dedication here. Millennials really fit that central area of 18 to 35 ish, depending on which demographic or report or consumer report, all those type of things. Depending on which one you're pulling from, that generally is, our younger workforce. And why this is such a big thing is their traits. They tend to marry late, which I'll touch on here in a little bit. They have huge buying power, which is very considerable, as well as pulling the workforce. But the reason for today is that over 50% of our staff, on average, tend to be millennials. So that brings us to our first poll question. And really something I want to gauge the room and get to feel before we get into the details of today. I'm going to launch our first poll question. So if you could do me a favor again and fill this in. Basically, what percentage of your millennial staff, your 18 to 35, are in management positions, leadership positions, starting to work their way up on that side. So if you could fill that in for me, we take this information, we report back to our partners at CUNA as well as ICBA through our executive partnership. So please fill those in. It's great information. We'd love to share with the rest of the community, because what I found when I did that session with ICBA in a group with over 100 people was we had teams who had over 50% of their staff were millennials. I had another bank who had 5% or less. It was just interesting to see the different spectrum. Again, it works based on your customers or members in the area and where they fit, and your demographics, and reflecting our culture is definitely key. But this is just an awesome opportunity for you to understand more where your peers are today. Okay, so it looks like about 45% or so of you have 1 to 5%, a few over 10. And then a few more that are up in the, over the 10 to 12 area as well. Okay, so we're going to close this one. We'll go back to our main screen, and we'll begin to move on to the next section. All right, so let's look at our baby boomers side by side with millennials. So we're starting to talk about pay and incentive and all this type of things. But we really have to set the stage when it comes to expectations. We have to put ourselves in that person's shoes. I love this infographic here, just this image, because it puts a clear side by side, the things we do have in common and don't. And whatnot, but just the tech critic, the creative, optimistic, motivated, and demotivated easily for the millennial. We've got the tech-friendly, practical, realistic, and duty-driven baby boomer. I think we can all agree those are great, indicators and in general, signs of each one of those. And also to set expectations, because I try to do this in every webinar. Today's session will probably be between 20 and 30 minutes or so. We try to keep these nice and short, informational, give you something that you can take back to your organization and apply, as well as give you some relative information to really just use and move on without having to keep you all for an hour or so. Okay, so we're really start moving through today. All right, so let's set the stage. So when we look at the difference between our baby boomers and our millennials specifically, and yes, I'm leaving out Generation X for the moment, is traditionally baby boomers are our managers, our leaders, our executives, at various levels. And then starting with Generation X, starting to step into those roles. This is key because we want to set everyone up for success. So understanding staff and differences is vital. And one of the biggest ones here is this great image that indicates, we've got our classic car as well as the home. That was the baby boomer dream. It was to drive the Cadillac. It was to have the nice house, work for the same organization for the next, 20, 30, 40 plus years, depending on the team, and you retire there. You're going to put in your dues, work your way up, scratch, claw, and just put it in and grit it out. Was really key. And the difference here is you're going to see, as I'll go through each one of these demographics from the age brackets, is how do we help bridge that gap? Because we have to set expectations accordingly, because this is a very different generation. Now, of course, Generation X has traditionally been thought of as entrepreneurs, doers, get out there and figure out a way and make it happen. And the key to this is that you can ultimately go through and be able to build something if it's not already there. And that's the key. So there's a lot of things available to this generation who thought outside the box rather than putting in dues. They thought it was better to have control of the business because the Fords, we all know the example or the image of Detroit now has significantly changed, right? That used to be the hopping city that everybody wanted to go and and work for one of the big four. But this is key, right? It's really setting a different stage for them. And now we have our millennials, right? Very different look and feel, how they want to work, where they want to put in their time, and all those type of things. So you see it very, very different. So again, some of you may on the call maybe fall in that baby boomer age range. Others may fall more in the middle somewhere. But the key is just to step back and sit in somebody else's shoes for a moment and see what the other side is thinking, how they react, what we're doing as we begin to really get in and help each other succeed today. Okay. Now, as we start to look at the next level, I'm going to bring up our second poll. Again, this is the interactive portion of our presentation discussion today. I want to get a sense for how long, with all the different descriptions we've given thus far, your millennials, right, that 18 to 35, how many of them is your churn so far? Are we looking at 5 years plus, 3 to 5 years, 1 to 2 years, less than a year? What have you seen at your organization before I share the rest of what we found and seen? So I want to get a feel for the room, and so we can see how different the spread is of our attendees here. So again, please fill those in as we get running here. Okay. And I'm going to check the polls. We do have the chat and questions section as well. So should you have any questions, feel free to punch those into the questions box or the chat. And you can be able to do those. I saw somebody had a hand raised. Feel free to post in things there. And really key to be able to go through and share feedback, okay? All right, I'm going to go ahead and take down this poll. It appears that we think most millennials, 80% of you, feel between 1 and 5 years, and it's really split between 1 and 2 years and 3 and 5 years. Okay, so pretty key as we start to look at our staff and how long they stay. Now, specifically, what type jobs are they looking for? This has been ultimately a huge key. So if you think about the difference between working for a big manufacturing company in the past with baby boomers to our next generation things they have available, this is really key to be able to go through and make sure we have the right expectations. So looking at Google, they're looking at Apple and tech companies. Now, if you notice, Disney's high on the list, even working for like the FBI and NASA and Peace Corps. So there's a lot of diversity to some of these organizations that specifically millennials are looking for. Where do they aspire to be? And based on the same expectations, we found that between 1 and 5 years tends to be where most millennials tend to be. I like to say if you can get a good 1 to 2 years, you're in great shape with this generation. But that's really key to, again, making sure that they're getting what they need to be successful. We cover that in other sessions on, the differences between the tools they have available today, how they're treated, setting expectations from day one. There's a lot of things we can do to help increase the retention of somebody like this. Now let's start talking about the pay and things of that nature. Now, when it comes to those, I want to pull the room specifically. What do you believe is the most valuable to a millennial? We're going to go through some examples here in a little bit, but just getting a feel for the room. So if you could fill in this poll, 1, do you enjoy that they enjoy their job security, ability to take off time, high paying, or a job that helps society? Where do you think millennials fit in this mix here? Again, fill these in as best you can, whichever one you think fits the best from here. Great spread. Goodness. Excellent. Okay, looks like we've got most of the votes in. Give it another second or two. It appears that we've got over 40% of you believe that it's enjoying your job. That's always a popular one. Able to make time off for family, flexible schedules. We've heard that time and time again. Of course, that society is a component of this. We're helping and giving back. Those of you who've attended some of my other webinars have definitely heard that. And of course, a few with the high paying aspect, of course. Okay. So we're going to jump into um, the meat of today. Okay, so when it comes to pay, there is exactly as you outlined, the difference between enjoying your job, the ability to have time and family, work-life balance, whatever that technically means. It's very different to each individual. It's different to organizations. So, it's just listening and working with the demographic to your area, your region, and expectations. We know that I have some clients who have 10, 15 branches. One branch is very conservative based on the customer base in the area. You have to mirror our customers in that. So that's one way. In others, it may be more of a college feel. I know Purdue Federal Credit Union here in town has more of the open pod set up. So you just come in and there's people at each, counter and area just spread out throughout the open area, and they help you as you go. There's no real line. It's a very different look and feel, but they're mirroring again the people that are around them. Now, some of this can be, again, that just being able to spend time with family and friends and happiness and balancing the business side of things. In some of the previous webinars, we talked about the business performance. How do we set them up for success? What are some tools like mirroring mentors? That's been a big topic, I know, in a lot of our sessions, has been being able to give mentors to our millennial workforce so they can have the performance side of things and an understanding as well. Okay. Next part is culture. You hit it right on the head. Enjoy your job, family needs, top two. I am in total agreement with you. Really to create the kind of workplace and a company culture that would attract great talent. I very much agree with this statement. Here at Passageways, we recently had an article in the newspaper about, we're not moving to Silicon Valley with our rapid growth and, employee engagement and community engagement, as well as just the marketplace. We're stuck here in West Lafayette, Indiana. We're grounded. We're rooted here to be able to help out the community that we've started with thus far and been able to do. Okay, so that's the key. So it's being able to have everything you need from here. And tell them to come back. Sorry about that. So you have the ability to really share your culture. Now, in other sessions, I've talked in great detail about the culture. How do we set the stage through community engagement? How do we set the stage through, being able to have cross-functional teams and things of that nature? I encourage you to go back to, I believe it was section 3, where he talked about team building and retention of employees. But culture is very vital. I think we all agree with that as we begin to look at the next session, as well as the top section. So where do staff put the most value? And again, this is broken down by men and women. We do tend to find with millennials, we're at parity when it comes to pay. I know there's not been a lot of talk about that, but there's different groups that are starting to shift, and naturally there's a movement. I know I was having a conversation with a gal from our staff who's freshly out of college. She was having a conversation about how she was sharing with a customer that she didn't know if she was going to be voting. And that customer, who was being very nice and sweet at the time, a baby boomer, got very intense and stepped up and talked about how she had to fight for her ability to vote, and being told in her first election process she was not allowed to vote. I mean, there are all those type things out there. So this is key. We've got a shift in times and things of that nature. So we're getting to a different level of parity. I mean, just bridging the gaps internally. That's the purpose of today's discussion. So we can see we've got, jobs you enjoy, job security. These are some good things for you to write down and take to your teams as you continue to think about what are our initiatives. I know specifically right now many teams are in strategic planning. That typically means budget cycles and things of that nature. And employee collaboration if it isn't, should be one of those top components, because to retain, to attract, to get those right employees, you have to get them an environment where they enjoy what they're doing. Providing an environment where it's paper-based, there's very little technology even for them. And we find, most groups, I'll be honest, some of our banks don't prefer to give technology to staff, but they give like an online app for customers to be able to access their accounts and whatnot. Well, staff need those tools as well, because then we start to find high turnover. I think you can all see that correspondence. So really, if that's not something you're considering as you get into the next year, I would really encourage you to think about helping out and getting our staff there. All right, so the next point: volunteer, 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 volunteer. Community. I know most groups tend to have something, but the millennials really want to give back. And the key is they want to give back, not something that's pushed down, top down, to say, we're going to give away money or, something of that nature. They want to be feet on the ground, those boots to the pavement, to go out to help their community, whether it's homeless shelters or raising funds for Operation Christmas Child and all those type things. You've got all these different projects that are available. And if you empower staff to take leadership and ownership of those volunteer opportunities, you will see an exponentially higher culture and engagement. Those are some of the things they value higher. Again, these are all components we value higher than pay, and that is key. We want to give them things such as flexible hours and all those type things, so we can help staff be really in tune. And I would put these all above pay, and that's even for myself. I can tell you, as a millennial, and now here's part of a leadership team at Passageways, that's the part I bring to the team, is my passion for those around us as opposed to just pay. There's lots of things that we can do in our lives, but ultimately that balance of, I've got 3 young boys. My oldest you saw a photo of just a little bit ago, coaches baseball team. I coaches basketball and soccer teams, really engaged in their lives. And yes, we talked about the awards, and everybody gets a cookie for doing something well in previous sessions. And how do we train staff outside of that? Volunteering is just one of those components that makes sense, and they would love to lead and take ownership. Just a great way to put value on this. One of our last slides here as we start to wrap up, because again, I promise you 20 to 25 minutes, maybe 30, depending on if we have any questions, and feel free to punch those in, is signs that you're on the right career path. So this is key. When we're talking about money and funds and things of that nature, if they're not hunting for something else, then they found the right place. This really stuck out to me because there haven't been many times in my career or my life when I was actually looking for a job outside of just graduating from college or in between for downsizing or something of that nature, perhaps. There haven't been a lot of times I've been hunting. And there's some staff who are just natural hunters. They're the people who are wanting to work somewhere for 6 months to a year, get that check on their badge, and move on. But when you can provide a culture, when you can provide community engagement, some of the other sessions that I was reading into, recommend that you have like a fitness facility. Purdue Federal Credit Union had a fitness facility within their basement that staff readily used. Other groups that aren't that fortunate tend to have local gym memberships. So there's things that we can do to help staff find value that they place above and beyond just pay. As a sales representative at Passageways and working with our employee intranet solution, I can tell you there's certain things, in as we like to say, levers you can pull. There's financials and the money side of things. There's value and services and plugins. Staff need the same opportunities. I think we tend to think that the only lever we have to pull is pay. And at the end of the day, now I'm putting your pay versus another. And that's hard to compete in some markets, right? Especially as a financial institution, the regulations we have to compete with, and technology increases and advancements, cybersecurity, and so forth. I really encourage you to think about other things than pay to help staff, and some of this can be as simple as optional components. I've even seen, helping with childcare and things of that nature. Others who focus on, again, gym memberships and so forth. So there's a lot of ways you can help staff be able to grow and be able to share information. One of the last polls here I just want to throw up on the screen, get your guys' feedback. I do this in every webinar, more as a courtesy, because I know most of us attend lots of webinars and educational series. So this is your opportunity where we provide the access to say, would you like to talk to someone from Passageways, where we can talk about employee engagement and collaboration through an electronic solution such as an employee intranet. If you haven't had the opportunity to watch some of our other sessions on hiring, retaining, and growing staff, I would encourage you to take a look at those. I'll also be on the road going into Q1, the beginning of the year, be speaking at a couple of our conferences through CUNA and ICBA, and hope to have the opportunity to speak with you there. So if you could, go ahead and fill these in. Again, if you're a customer or you want to have someone talk to you, feel free to put those in here. That way we can make sure we put you on the right list. I tend to get a lot of teams who come in who don't know what's possible, frankly. And so this is your opportunity to learn what's available to teams and more specifically to organizations such as yourself. We just passed our 600th customer mark. We're really excited about that, and we'd love to see if you guys are interested in the Passageways family as well. Here's my contact information. I encourage you to hit me up on LinkedIn. You can learn more about our webinar series, Passageways. You can see some of our other contacts and credit unions and banks we're working with in your area, as well as my email and direct line. I'd love to have a quick chat with you should you have any questions. So with that, we're going to conclude today's webinar. I thank everybody for your time. It doesn't appear we have any questions in the chat or in the box here, and encourage you to take a look at our other sessions and hopefully connect with you on LinkedIn. With that, we conclude today's webinar and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.